Hey, I'm Megan.
How's it going? I'm Woody.
And we're going to tell you the story of how we got our barndominium built in North Carolina. They're not exactly common here, so it was pretty unfun.
Yeah.
What would you say was the first red flag that this was going to be like really not easy?
Probably when we told the inspector that we were planning on doing this type of building, and he was like, "What are you talking about? That sounds stupid. Why would you do that? You can't do that." And I'm like, "I know we can do that. That's not true."
Neither one of us had owned property before we bought this lot. It's almost 3 acres, and we are about 20 minutes north of Wilmington, North Carolina. So we're very, very, very close to the beach. It's a huge swamp. And when we bought the property, it was in pretty rough shape. It hadn't been cleared ever. And it was covered in trees, like super duper dense. We rented a brush hog. We drove 2 hours from where we were living in Fayetteville so we could come out here with the brush hog to look at it, because there was no way we were walking it without something to clear it with. You just couldn't get through, let alone find the property lines or the corners. We had just had our first anniversary when we came out to look at it. And then we closed in like February, right? Early February?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you had just had the pec repair.
Yep. So I was pretty much useless.
Yeah. Can you show what that was?
Oh, yeah. Just, boom, there's the scar.
Yeah. So that was like a minimum of 6 months rehab. And then a month after we bought the property, maybe a month and a half, COVID hit. The supply chain issues were apparent right out the gate, but we had no idea how bad it was going to get. We, like I said, had never owned property before. We were renters. We had watched every video on YouTube about barndominiums at that point. Mind you, we've been married almost 5 years now. 5 years next month.
Yeah. Well,
it's our
technically,
government
yeah,
anniversary.
It's not a real anniversary, but
yeah, but 5 years, which is crazy. And I mean, we were in sleeping bags on the couch watching Mr. and Mrs. Post Frame because our house didn't have heat. At the time, it was Marshall Remodel. But yeah, I mean, we were really in it to build one of these for a bunch of reasons. I do woodworking, and he does everything.
Yep.
So we wanted a house with a lot of space for us to do the things that we were passionate about. So for me, I needed a place where I could have all of my working tables, all kinds of equipment. Eventually I want a big planer, but I don't think that'll happen when we're living here. He wanted, list all the things that immediately were like needs.
So, I mean, I needed a lift. That was 100% right there. And then because of the height of the house we ended up going with, because we wanted the 9-foot ceilings, we went with such a high sidewall that we kind of had to do a mezzanine in the garage. Otherwise, it's just like, why? It's like you could fly drones in there. You could play.
Hey, list all the tools that you wanted.
I'm getting there. I wanted to have a machine shop underneath the mezzanine. I was getting to why we had a mezzanine, but a mill, a lathe, probably a CNC plasma table, a couple 3D printers. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I want to be able to like prototype. That's really what I want to do.
Yeah. So we have a 60 by 50 shop with a second story across the whole back half, which...
Well, 20 feet of the back half.
It's a big garage. We've got floor drains. He's got his 2-post lift installed, and it's pretty great, but we didn't get to finish out the mezzanine before we moved in. We had a shipping container on the property that we had put all of our stuff in. And it was here for 2.5 years.
Yep.
Yeah, it was here for like 2.5 years, and we had gotten every inspection up until almost the final with that shipping container right there. And then one of the inspectors came out and called us because we weren't here and said, whose shipping container is that? That needs to move. I called zoning on you already. And we found out that we could get back charged $100 per day that we've had it here illegally.
Yeah, so essentially back in 2010, Pender County made an ordinance that said you cannot have a shipping container on a residentially zoned piece of property, period, end of story, in the county, doesn't matter. Regardless if it's visible from the road or anything. It's like a giant, all-encompassing HOA for no reason. It's so stupid. So, yeah, we got it off the property. We actually sold it back to the people that we bought it from. So, we didn't make any money off of it, but it was gone. I guess we made money by saving money, not putting it all in storage.
But all the stuff from the shipping container had to go in January as soon as we got home from Christmas. And it went right into the garage.
Yes.
So the garage, before we even moved in, was completely full of stuff, which made it really hard to get a lot of things done when we moved in.
Yeah, and the mezzanine wasn't done yet. Like I didn't have flooring in the I didn't put
stairs
in the mezzanine. I didn't have stairs. So yeah,
it was pretty useless.
Eventually, I made the stairs for the mezzanine, and we put flooring. Actually, put flooring in before the stairs. Did flooring with the help of her dad, and then made some stairs, and now we actually have like a usable mezzanine. It doesn't have the handrails yet, so it's like not safe.
No, it's very
or lights.
Safe.
Still don't have any lights in the garage.
That's a different story altogether. So we bought the property. He did his rehab-ish at home because of COVID. And as soon as COVID started, really, he couldn't come down here. They had a restriction of movement, and you couldn't be more than, like an hour away from base at any time. So I was coming down here by myself, trying to coordinate getting the land cleared and getting other things done, getting the well done. Like, it was a nightmare. And then in August, we come down here. He starts on the team immediately, and it was go, go, go from then.
Yeah.
And somehow we got pregnant that month. So.
Well, I told you once we changed scenery and we're in Fayetteville. And actually,
yeah, Fayetteville. Apparently the water is not for fertility.
No.
But here by the beach, it is. So it worked out. So complicated things though.
Okay, so then we got pregnant.
Yeah.
And then not fast forward, but it was kind of your show at that point.
Yeah, well, it was really stressful like from that time on, because when we found out we were pregnant, I found out we were pregnant, and I waited a week or two to tell you. By then it was mid-September. Can you talk a little bit about what your job was so this makes a little bit more sense?
I was in school at SOCM to be an SOIDC with the Marine Corps. It's a Special Operations Independent Duty Corpsman, fancy term for like a recon corpsman or MARSOC corpsman. Now, I'm not tooting my horn, but the top Special Operations medical course in the world. Like, we got like Germans, we got Swiss people, we got Estonians, we got every other French. We got tons of people from all over the world coming and doing this course that are in Special Operations.
So my sister was here for her birthday. And I waited 2 weeks to tell you until you were both here, because I wanted to talk to a couple of people who knew the deployment schedule and figure out if you were going to be here, or if you were supposed to be here when you had the baby, because that was going to change how I told you.
So yeah, I was able to be, right? I got about a month and a half to 2 months with them before
you had to leave.
Before I had to leave, so.
Well, it was like a lot of weight on my shoulders doing this without him around and having to deal with all of the different people and balance the budget and figure all that out. It was kind of nice never having to argue with him about decisions in the house. And at that point, with the way pricing was going, it's like, well, it costs what it costs. We're not in a position to be bartering on things, because if we can get it, we're gonna get it. So I think that eliminated a lot of the would-be arguments or disagreements. We had no clue how to get plans done, because at the time there weren't all of these Barndominium plans people. There were people who had done plans for Barndominiums, but you didn't see what the final product looked like or know if the plans were worth anything. So we had been designing our own floor plan for years at that point. I literally would get in trouble, truly years. I was getting in trouble in nursing school for doodling plans while we were having lecture, and look at me now.
Not doing any medicine.
Yeah, not a nurse anymore.
Yeah.
But I am living in a barndominium, so one of these things worked out.
Yeah.
The house has 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, and above where we're sitting right now in the kitchen is what will eventually be like the pool room, game room situation.
Yeah.
Because he's always wanted a pool table at home. So that was actually part of our like floor planning process. We had to put in the exact dimensions of things that we knew we wanted, like the size of kitchen table we wanted, like the size of pool table we wanted, couches. We went
a urinal.
A urinal. Do you have a urinal?
Yes. It's very nice. Everybody compliments me on my urinal.
By everyone, you mean all the dudes.
Yeah. Everybody that uses a urinal, Megan. Why would the women be like, oh, it's so nice of you to have a urinal so you don't have to put the seat back down? Like, no one cares about that.
I mean, that's the most used bathroom in the house, and it's pretty clean all the time.
Yeah.
So, when we first bought the property and started coming out here, I think it was it was before we moved, but well after we bought the property. I had printed off these flyers that were like, hey, we're the Woodworks, this is my contact information, this is what we're doing, we bought the lot at so-and-so, and we put them in mailboxes and hand-delivered them to a couple neighbors that were here whenever we were here. We met our most wonderful busybody neighbor, who we absolutely love, and she said, well, where are you guys living while you're doing that? And we were like, I don't know, we're gonna be homeless soon because our friend's coming home from employment and we gotta leave his house. So she said, well, there's a couple old people down the street, they're wanting to move back to Vermont, and they're gonna be, it's not glamorous, but they're gonna be selling their trailer pretty cheap. So if you guys are interested, I'll let you know and I'll, give your contact info. So we did that, went and looked at the trailer. It was rough. It was real rough.
People were very nice though.
Very, very nice people, but it was gonna need a lot of work, especially if we were gonna bring a baby home.
But it was very cheap.
Very cheap.
Very cheap, and for the area, it's just so cheap. And we didn't have to go through a real estate agent, none of that stuff.
Yeah.
So that was big.
So we paid $45,000 for our almost 3 acres that was fully wooded, no improvements, nothing. And then this trailer down the street, which was in livable condition, on 0.75 acres.
Yes.
Yeah. It with a well, with septic. We could move in immediately if we wanted to. Wouldn't have to do anything to make it habitable. $60,000.
Cheaper than a truck.
Cheaper than a truck. So.
Well, not the trucks I buy. Mine are much cheaper than that. But
yeah. So we bought it. And we bought it in January. We weren't gonna move in until mid-February or take ownership until mid-February. That was our closing. And we literally met them at the closing office, exchanged keys, and we rode on down to the house and started tearing it up.
Yeah, tore out the carpet. That was the first thing because it smelled like cat pee and had cat hair everywhere. So got all that out and burned on the front lawn, I think, right?
Yeah, thank God it was like late February too, because the AC was not working. We had to replace the AC. That was a mess, but it was cold enough out that we could just open the doors and windows and not be enveloped by the cat pee. If you don't know how metal building purchases work, you're gonna spend, we spent a lot of money on our metal building, much more than we anticipated, but you have to pay 25% up front as a deposit, and they use that as your like engineering fees, and basically for them to do all the legwork to get ready to do your building. And then you pay another 25% before some other portion of the process.
Probably before cut.
Yeah,
fab.
Right before it goes to fab. And then whenever the driver gets to your place with the building on the back of the truck, you pay the rest of it, which the 50% that remains. So in January we cut a $23,000 check, which is the most money I had ever written a check for, because when we did our closing on the property, it was like a wire. So I'd never like, I wrote a check for $23,000 and it like, I had to sit in the parking lot of Staples before I faxed it in. It was like, that was scary. It was really scary for me because it was like, once this building's ordered, there's no going back. It was really scary, but we decided to go for it because I was pregnant and we were not going to live in that trailer forever. And we figured that you had another 6 years in the Navy and we were going to be here, so it was going to be worth it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was fall of it was like December of 2020 when the vaccines started coming out, right?
We already kind of made our head up like right then and there, like, yeah, this is a hill to die on. Like, we're not gonna, and that was even before like any of the, you know, mandates or questions about its efficacy, or, I mean, I already kind of had a feeling, you know. But.
Well, and to be very clear, we're not going to debate anybody about this stuff because our reasoning initially was very different than most people's, I think. Right after we got married, we had a miscarriage. And science, I'm a nurse, he was a provider, there was no reasonable explanation for what happened. They couldn't figure out why it took us 2 years to get pregnant, and there was no way that for either of us, all the things that we've been taught, the standards of care up until all of this came down, there was no reason why either of us should be taking this that we could think of, and I was not about to put potentially our fertility, the health and safety of any baby that we had on the line.
Yeah, because when it comes down to it for us, like, you know, I was thinking of stupid Fast and Furious and stuff. Like, it's all about family.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it is like, what's the point of all this or any of this if we're not going to have, you know, kids and share it and pass it on to the next generation, you know, of Americans. Into America. Like, I'm like, well, I guess I'll just be a felon then. That's fine with me.
Well, we plan to fight it.
Yeah, I was obviously planning to fight it, but like, you know, label me all you want, I don't care. If you and I get to have kids and have the life we want, but for some reason I just can't be hired by another person because I'm a felon, quote unquote, you know, then fine, I'll just start my own business.
Yeah,
I'll work for myself. I don't need to work for somebody else if that's the case.
Yeah. So we made that decision really early on, and we were going to live with the consequences. So leading up to having our son was really rough. You weren't exactly popular at work at that point.
Yeah.
I wasn't working because I was doing all of this and being pregnant, and I knew that I wasn't going to be working after I had the baby. So our whole world was kind of this, which was probably a good thing because as stressful as it was good to be able to focus on something else.
Mm-hmm. Something positive.
Something positive.
And new.
Yeah, exactly. We have our foundation poured. We had bought a drone. We were so excited about the drone. We'd been using it very sporadically to get aerial pictures of the lot and see how it changed from when we first had it cut to where, you know, all the water was sitting, and be able to point out to people like, okay, this is where we need to raise the grade, this is where we need to put culverts, like all of that stuff. It was awesome for that. But then the day that we had the foundation poured was different. So we got up, we were a quarter mile down the street, so we made coffee, ran down here. I had an umbrella chair and my phone, and we had the drone, and you, I think, went to work for like an hour that day and then came home. And we were there from 4 o'clock in the morning before the truck got here until like 3 in the afternoon when the guys finished finishing the slab. And it was awesome.
Yeah, a pump truck, obviously for the size of the slab. Megan we had set up our little observational area on top of the conics and shipping container, whatever. And yeah, just, you know, videoed all the trucks. I don't know how many trucks we had come in, probably like a dozen.
At least, yeah. But we got the drone up, and we got all kinds of pictures of these trucks and videos of the trucks coming in and out. And over the course of that one day, everything kind of changed. We were like, holy crap, we're doing this.
Yeah, and then once it cured, a couple days later, we went back and put down some painter's tape, which still to this day is in some of these walls because it never came up because we left it for too long and it got sewn on it and stuff.
Yeah, baked on.
But then we were able to do like a, you know, tape walls and a tape house, whatever, and walk it and get to kind of see like, okay.
Threw the drone up, got pictures of the slab with all of our tape on it, and it was neat. It was really neat. Highly recommend you do that if you have the opportunity, but take the tape up quickly before it becomes part of your house. So,
especially if you're gonna tape off like your bed.
Yeah, that was dumb.
It's one thing to tape off like your walls because they're gonna be in the wall, but it's a whole other thing to like tape off like
that was my idea, and it was dumb. It did not work out. So we had a bet going, what was gonna come first, the building or the baby, and everybody lost. So the truck showed up at like 9:45, and then I had the baby at 11:45, and after lunch the second truck came. And I was in the hospital for all of it. So the build went on. The erecting crew, by the time we'd come home from the hospital, had a couple of columns up, and we were like, oh, this is great. Like, they're moving at speed. They're gonna meet their 3-week timeline for getting the entire building done. And then it took them months to complete stuff. They screwed up everything they possibly could. There's still stuff on this house that like drives me insane, was not done correctly, looks like trash, but what was I gonna do? I had a new baby, we didn't have reliable childcare, family was in Texas for the most part, like we were at a loss all around. Like there was nothing that could be done control-wise. We were doing the best we could, but it took forever, it was discouraging. And month after month, you know, we got the building shell up, but the windows weren't in. We got the electricians out here, and thank God all the plumbing and the electrical that was done in slab was in the right places. We didn't have to move any of that. That was good. It's a headache I don't know that I'd have been able to stomach, but in late November, right around Thanksgiving, it came down that SOCOM said anyone who hasn't been vaccinated needs to return to the States.
To get out processed. And I'm like, sick. Let's do it. So let's please send me home for Christmas. I'm not doing anything here anyway.
Well, and it would be silly for me not to explain this completely, but my fear was that instead of sending them home up until this point, he would have gotten stuck somewhere. So when I say that picking him up from the airport was a huge relief, but also very sad, that's where it's coming from, because I was terrified you were going to end up in a jail. You came home at midnight and it's like raining and windy, and you just hopped in the passenger seat. And like for me, at least, I had always hoped that we could do a coming home and, you know, the whole nine, cook your favorite foods, invite everybody over, like have a party, and I feel like you got robbed. So the next morning we got in the Wagoneer, which his dad had worked on while he was gone, and drove down the street to the build, and you got to see the house for the first time.
Oh my God, this is so fucking cool. Holy shit.
How was that?
That was pretty cool. Yeah, it was way, I mean, I had seen some of it before, like with the columns up, but one or two columns or one, like half of a wall didn't do it justice. As soon as I saw like the giant, like just, it's really huge. really, really big. I'm like, wow. Looks like, I nicknamed it the Monopoly Hotel, I think, at that moment, because it's just one big green rectangle with a roof on it. But yeah, it was really cool. I think at that time we still had just like wood framing.
The interior was framed.
Yeah, we didn't have.
I think we were getting rough-in electrical finished out, and rough-in plumbing finished.
Yeah, and had I known where we'd be at now, I would have been like up in their butts about the electrical. Been like, hey, you were going to add more cable here and more cable there.
Yeah. But at that point, we had kind of different priorities, because we were convinced you were going to lose your job like any day.
Yeah, so
we were just happy to be here.
Yeah.
We were just glad that you were home and trying to be grateful.
Yeah.
We always knew that we were going to move into an unfinished house. Like, it wasn't going to be done. At least, you know, when you think of like builder grade homes or turnkey homes, you can move in and all the trim is painted and your range hood is done and everything's just perfect. And you can walk around with your little roll of tape and mark things that need to get fixed before you move in. And we knew that wasn't going to be how we did this. We knew we were going to move in without lights in the garage and without, you know, having all of our mirrors for the bathrooms and paint colors picked out. Most of the house was primer. But we were moving in because I needed to get the hell out of that trailer. And as soon as we got the green light to move in, we did. It took us a few rounds to get the green light. We applied for our final twice. The first time we failed because we didn't have numbers on the house. As much as it was the end of the major stressors for us while building the house, we could live in it. It wasn't the end of all the projects. So when we moved in, we didn't have our range hood done. It was like the carcass of a range hood. We didn't have trim painted or holes filled. We had a lot left. Now we're just trying to set up all of our little homestead stuff and get the house to a point where everything functions the way we want it to. And then I'll worry about painting trim. And then I'll worry about, you know, doing all the little pretty stuff that I want to do.
Little projects that take small amounts of time that can be easily accomplished that make you feel like you've accomplished something.
Yeah.
As opposed to just giant looming things that like you do a little bit on, you're like, still not done.
And they're very expensive.
Still not done. Still not done. The railings still not done. I haven't taken them down and painted them yet.
But, you know.
So.
It's not the end of the world. And we're here and you're out of the military now.
Yes.
So literally the day we were in at the end of March, we lived in it April, May, and then right after Wade's birthday on the 25th, we had like 3 days, and then before June, we just took off. And he got out on the 31st. We left immediately on a road trip and traveled.
In the excursion.
In the excursion that he finished.
Fixed the excursion.
Which was epic. And we traveled all over the place. We went all the way down south to Texas. We stopped a bunch of spots in between, stayed a couple weeks in Texas and traveled around, spent time with family, visited other Barndominium builds. And then we went, up to North Texas, kind of Dallas area, then Oklahoma to look at some trucks, then Arkansas, Missouri, stopped at a barndo there, and then we went and visited our friends of ours that it tickles me that we're friends because of how we became friends. When we first started wanting to build, we watched all their YouTube videos. It's Paul and Emily Marshall. And we went and spent like more than a week at their house in Des Moines, Iowa. And you got to work with Paul and I got to work with Emily, and like, it's crazy. Super crazy that we got to do that, honestly. But we've been friends for probably 1.5 years now, just talking constantly. We have a podcast. Like, Emily and I work together all the time, but we've never been able to meet because I have a little baby that I can't leave, and we were doing the build, and then
I was in the military.
And you're still in the military, so we couldn't do what we wanted. But like, we're ready for the next part of life where we get to like show all of the things. Like, we didn't get to do as much as we wanted hands-on with this build, but we recorded everything.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got tons of stuff that we never got to show at the time that we're gonna get to do now. And then we'll get to take everybody into all these cool Barndominiums that we toured and really teach about what it is that these homes do, why people build them, who builds them, all the different ways to get them done. Anyway, we're the Woodwards. This is Woody. I'm Megan. We've been on Instagram for about 3 years sharing, so if you want to go back and see all that we've done or get a lot more looks at the house and some of the houses we've toured, you can check us out there. It's Woody's_Barndominium_build. If you look up Woody's Barndominium, it'll pop up. You can also find us online on our website, barndominiumtour.com, where we post Barndominiums for sale. We talk about all the things that we've done in this house. We do typical DIY blog posts. We share about other people's homes that we've toured, talk about financing, all the things to get you started on building your own Barndominium. or you can watch us here on YouTube, where we're hopefully going to do a lot more of the same, but with probably a lot more of our projects and homesteading stuff. And yeah, you're going to get a lot more of the day-to-day life here. So anyway, thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mwah. That was so long. That was so much longer than I thought it was going to be.